Yeah, dementia is an umbrella term. It's what we call a syndrome. It's a collection of signs and symptoms. So people have memory loss of a particular kind or some other cognitive disability. They can't use language very well. They're impaired in visuospatial abilities. They have trouble making decisions or paying attention. So dementia really refers to having two or more of those impairments to the extent that the person really can't function well on their own. So you might have a lot of trouble getting organized and be very forgetful and no longer able to live alone. That's dementia. Well, think of dementia a little bit like having angina, where the heart is stressed, but there are many different causes in the heart that cause the angina. So dementia isn't really in the brain. Dementia is a result of brain damage. But sometimes angina is not a result of a heart problem. Sometimes it feels like a heart problem, but it might be a liver problem or a gallbladder problem or an ulcer. Same thing with dementia. Most of the time it's because of some brain condition, but not always. So that's one of the reasons we like to get people evaluated as early as possible, because occasionally we discover things that say, oh, no, this is not dementia, or this is a dementia we can fix. So for example, people who have depression late in life, that depression can cause dementia. It impairs memory, it impairs organizational ability. But if we get the depression better, many times we get the dementia better as well. There are many factors. And vasculature of the brain, high blood pressure, diabetes, those are all risk factors. Head injuries are probably risk factors, especially younger in life. Depression is a risk factor. Probably the strongest two risk factors are getting older and having the wrong genes. Well, I'm optimistic and I'm also pessimistic. I think from the point of view of the situation we have now, which is we understand reasonably well what's going on in the brain, we can describe the kinds of symptoms that people have and the disabilities they get, and we are therefore able to design treatment programs that help them be as functional as possible. So we have reasonably good what we call best practices under the current capabilities. I'm more pessimistic about the likelihood that we're going to get those cures. I think they'll show up, but I don't see them imminent in the next 5 to 10 years. 25 years ago, we were more hopeful, yeah. Because the first major relevant discovery was that Alzheimer's dementia was linked with loss of a particular brain structure called the nucleus basalis. And in those days, we knew that that nucleus, that part of the brain, made a chemical called acetylcholine. So the initial thought was, we'll fix this by just replacing the acetylcholine. And there are medicines that do that. Things like donepezil, all the cholinesterase drugs. I don't want to endorse one or the other, but Aricept is the one that most people are familiar with. That's basically what it does. It improves the amount of acetylcholine in your brain. So we did that, and then we discovered that really the loss of that part of the brain, the nucleus basalis, is downstream. There's upstream damage that damages and kills that part, but many other brain parts. So then the next major discovery was this idea that a protein that we call beta amyloid starts clumping out in the brain, and that's what's killing the nucleus basalis and all these other parts. Wow. So for 15, 20 years, the effort now has been to bust the amyloid, if you will. The problem is we've tested quite a number of amyloid-busting drugs that we know get in the brain, that we know bust the amyloid, and for the most part, they don't help people with dementia. And that could be because there's too much brain damage. And so we need to start giving these drugs well before the dementia, when the amyloid is first forming. And that's where we are now. That's what the studies are doing. So if you're 60 and you're on 10 different medicines, it's rare that you're 60 and you need to be on 10. And having fewer might improve your memory. If you drink too much, now if you drink too little, it's probably not so good for you either. But drinking too much, or obviously using drugs, that can be bad for the brain. Nowadays, sedatives and painkillers are a major issue that cause memory symptoms. Sleep disturbance is big. That often links in with a stressful lifestyle. And then, of course, depression. So all of those, if someone shows up with memory loss at 50 or 60, those are the kinds of things we look for. Life. Our encouragement is that you decide who will be making decisions for you if you're not able to make them for yourself. We ask people to give guidance in the form of how much life support would you want under different circumstances. But we also encourage them not to bind themselves too often through a living will. Many people withdraw their living will if they don't have dementia at the end of life. People with dementia can't do that. So we don't want our patients to get themselves trapped. They need a decision maker. They need a sense of what their wishes would be. So starts early, think about it. And then the next question is, how can we anticipate that the end of life is approaching in dementia? That's one of our biggest challenges.